say this is absolutely going to happen and figure it out from there?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. Usually you have a couple going into the draft, you know for sure guys going here, and we'll have a pretty good idea by next week, but there's still some unknowns. But again, we got a grouping of players we're pretty sure that we're talking about and we're evaluating from.
Because you're getting such a high pick at number 5, do you expect this player to be NHL ready in a year? Like, in other words, a year after he's drafted?
Depends on the player, to be honest with you. Some players are physically more ready than others. There's a couple of kids that might need a little more time to get stronger. Some kids have played at a little higher level, but that'll be up to them as they're, But again, some of these kids should be ready to press with maybe potentially within a year, and other kids may need to.
Chuck, I know you kind of touched on this back at the end of the season, but obviously things may have changed. Do you still very much envision making this pick, not trading it for some type of a player to win now?
Well, if we're going to trade the pick outright, it needs to be for a player in a certain age group. It'd have to be a player that could help us win now, but also win for several years. I don't think we're looking to bring in somebody, in their late 20s or early 30s. But certainly, I'm speaking to every team in the league. I know we say this every year, but it's definitely true this year. And trying to ascertain what the value of that pick is, and if somebody has designs on it and makes the fair offer, we got to consider everything.
The other side of that is, with so much talent kind of bunched up together, does it make it potentially easier to make that decision, knowing that the guy you really like at 5 can still be there if you move down X number of spots?
Yeah, I mean that certainly could be the case. I think the top end of this draft is, as Brent mentioned just previously, is fairly scrambled. I'm sure everybody would have different readings on the group and different lists. I think there's probably several names that would all be in most teams' top 10, but they could be ordered quite differently. So, whether that creates more movement or less movement, I'm not sure. But I think, there's already been some interesting conversations, and I think everybody's trying to get a sense of where everybody's at, but also what the value of that pick is.
Dr. You mentioned at the end of the season that you're hoping to have an update on the status of Brian Ellis around this time frame and could potentially help you inform the way you're going to operate this season. What is his status?
Well, he's continuing to progress. He's certainly improved since the end of the season. He's certainly further along now than he was a month ago or 2 months ago. In saying that, the bulk of his rehab is still ahead of him. He's starting to intensify his off-ice workouts, and again, it's going well, but there's several more steps to go before he gets on the ice. So it's still difficult, if not impossible, to predict where he'll be in 2 or 3 months. But the last month has been encouraging, but there's still more work to do.
Considering the uncertainty of how draft prospects will develop, as well as the coaching situation, how does Don Tortorella as your coach affect at all what you're looking for going in?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. He's no different than any other coach. We heard the old adage, best player available, but we're looking for a player, whether it's realistically it's not going to be a goaltender this year at 5 certainly, but a forward or a defenseman that has a skill set that can help us for many years. So we're open to either position. There's some excellent defensemen, some excellent forwards, and certainly we're looking for talent at the top of the draft.
Chuck, just to go back to Libby's question on Ryan Ellis, do you expect him to be ready for training camp, or is that still an unknown?
I don't know how anybody could predict that right now. That's certainly the hope and the goal, but we'll have to see. He's starting to again ramp up the rehab, which is great that he's at that point where he can ramp it up, but we'll just have to see how everything responds.
Sorry, I was going to say with Joel Farabee, when did that kind of happen, or when did it evolve into that he had to get surgery?
It happened 2 weeks ago, actually. Crazy. I think it was one of his first sort of formal workouts of the summer. He was warming up with light weights on the bench press, and he felt think he called it a pinch or some kind of pinching sensation in his neck area. So he was able to see a doctor in the Syracuse area, got some imaging done. We got him down here last Monday to see Dr. Yoon, and then he literally got him into surgery 4 days later. So I don't even know what to say. Extremely unfortunate and unlucky for him. But I think we moved as quickly as we could once we knew he had issues.
Speaking to Farabee's issue, the time frame kind of puts it right, at the start of camp, at the start of the season. I guess how much training is he going to be able to do despite the surgery? And are you optimistic he'll be ready for the start of camp, the start of the season?
I'm not even sure that's important to me. Just looking at some of the schedule drafts we have coming out, I think we have 8 games in the month of October. So, to me, it's about getting them right. And going to your point, I'm not 100% sure yet how quickly he can get into getting stronger and really working on, not just his upper body, but his lower body as well, and building some strength to help him become a little bit more durable. He plays hard. He's a fearless kid, and this is going to be a big summer for him from a strength and development scenarios. So that's certainly an important part of the rehab. It's not just getting him healthy, but it's how can we get him stronger. So for me, whether it's 3 months or 4 months, at the end of the day, if he misses 5 games, if he's ready for game 1, great. If he misses 5, 6, 7 games and we can push him a little bit further, that might make sense too. So we'll make every decision with him based on his long-term health, welfare, and development.
Did the doctors speculate on whether or not any of this was tied into, he had a couple of bad, situations last year with injuries, upper body type things. Did he say to you whether or not that was connected?
No, no one said that. I mean, you could speculate all you want, but no, there's no correlation, certainly nothing at the end of the year. There was no issue with this at any point since I've been here, so
Even
I'm not
talking
sure.
to Joel this morning, he was just saying that's the first time when he started working out was his shoulder, and everything felt 100%. He felt great, and then it just happened. So
Yeah,
it's
so,
unfortunate. He walked out of the surgery, and later that day feels really good, which is it's amazing. But
that's an incredible surgery.
The fact that
Consultation at all whatsoever relevant? What kind of player do you like? What kind of player does the coach might want to build around sometime? Maybe get a chance for the coach to look in a guy's eyes or anything like that? Did I misunderstand it? You said there was none at all there.
He's not coming here, no.
Okay, so that's what you decided.
I've never had a head coach ever. In 30 years I've been in the business, I've never seen a head coach be involved with the drafting of kids that may not play for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So, I mean, certainly I'm well aware of what John likes in a hockey player, and it's what I think all of us in our group respect. We want smart, competitive, hardworking people, preferably 6'5" with high-end skill and great speed. But I like John clearly. Like all of us, I think we appreciate the same attributes in the players. So, it's just John will be consulted a lot more on pro players and maybe free agents or trades that we bring in. Like every coach, you always want to get a coach's input into the type of players that you bring in from the outside if you're going to do that. Maybe they have knowledge of the player. Maybe there's certain things they know about the player that you don't. So you'd be crazy not to involve your coaching staff on player personnel decisions. But in terms of the draft, no, it's just we've just never done that, and
nor do they want it.
I don't think they want to either. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They don't want any responsibility for that.
This is for Brent. I know you say you're going to pick the best player available, but if everything was equal, let's say the defenseman and the forward were...
Sam, we're not showing our hand. You're just trying to get dirt out of me.
Was that?
You're just trying to get dirt out of me. I'm not going to tell you.
I was going to say, which position would you go for if they were equal?
Why would I tell you that?
Sam, we could use everything. We could use a center, a wing, a defenseman. So it's.
But in reality, there's obviously a grouping of players that a lot of you guys are aware of, and we have some guys higher than others. But we're at the mercy of the teams in front of us a little bit. But again, we have a couple players targeted that we're hopeful that are there at 5, and if that's the case, then we'll make that decision. But
Going back to Farabee for a quick sec. He had the same surgery Jack Eichel and Tyler Johnson did. Does it give you a little bit of, I don't know if ease is the right word, but the fact you saw Eichel have it come back 3 months, Johnson come back, be effective 3 months, that give you hope that Joel could have the same sort of runway there?
Yeah, it did, and I know, Joel and Joel's family and his representation certainly were encouraged by the results that they've seen, and we obviously consulted with more than one doctor. We got multiple opinions, and everybody thought that this was the best approach. So, again, for Dr. Yoon to see him on a Monday, recommend the surgery, and he had it on a Friday, there was a high degree of cooperation, a lot of communication with everybody, and we all felt that this was the best way to go, not just short term in terms of getting him back as a player, but for his long-term health as well. So it's incredible. There's still just only 3 players that have had it, but my expectation is that this will become a little bit more commonplace as we move forward.
Right, there's typically a consensus, probably top 2 or 3 in each draft. With this draft, do you know where maybe things can start to really vary in terms of how teams view a certain player?
One?
Okay.
No, this year's a little different. And you guys read about the names. It's I know I talked to a lot of my counterparts. There's a lot of differing opinions at the top end of the draft. It's not as much of a consensus as some teams think, or some media think. But I think you see the general names. We have a couple layers of players where we, a certain amount of guys that we are comfortable with where we're at, and then another layer, maybe you can move back a couple spots, maybe move back a number if you're confident, at the draft table. If it goes a certain way and we can move back and gain assets and still get a player that we have rated, then we'll potentially do that. But you're going to see more action when you get closer to the draft, and we'll get more information and what teams are doing or looking to do.
Chuck, it's been a really long time since a top 5 pick has been traded, whether it's a trade down or whether it's whether it's trading for a player. It's been done, but usually it happens before the team knows it's a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
I guess why do you think that is so rare, and do you think this draft has the potential to be different in that sense?
Were you in our meeting this morning? I swear to God, we were talking about that. I was asking, when was the last time a team traded back from number 5? And was it Luke Shen?
Yeah, we haven't looked it up officially.
Yeah, that's the only name we came up with, and I have Ian and Cole in there digging it up for me. They gave me a lot of great things today, but it's hard. I assume because you've had, obviously, you have to have a pretty bad season to earn the number 5 pick or to earn a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick, and it's still the best way of acquiring top end talent. So I think it's difficult to trade because that's a great opportunity to fix at least one hole that you have long term in your organization. And then there's also the talking about today. There's the human or the emotional or the psychological side of it as well. You have guys that have worked all year preparing their list, and they get a chance to get a top guy. And, as a manager, you're trying to give your guys more opportunities, not take opportunities away from them. So I think that factors in as well. But yeah, there haven't been a lot, and we're looking at that, and you're trying to ascertain what's that value if you do. How much do you need to get back to move, from 5 to whatever. That we all have our probabilities and how much each slot over time has become an NHL player, a good NHL player. But then you got to factor in this draft, as Brent said, the layers. Maybe you have a layer of 5 players and then another layer of 5. And if there's a big discrepancy, do you really want to trade out of one layer into another? Or if you do, what are you getting? You got to be getting something. So we honestly met on that for an hour today. That's not our first meeting, but as you get closer, you're starting to ask those questions because teams are calling you. Would you trade out of 5? Sure. You always say sure. I don't know if you always mean it, but of course, yeah, sure, we'll make. But want to hear what they have to say. So that's the fun part of it, for us at least. Exploring what may be there. But as you just mentioned, history tells you that usually you make the pick.
Are you guys comfortable to talk about a player in generalities, a prospect? In other words, I throw out the name Cutter Gauthier, can you talk about what you like about him?
I don't know. I've never really done that just because I need to get into going through all of them like the kids at the top end here. There's like every year there's some really good young players. I think the one thing that separates this draft from many is, I think the top 5 is still in flux. Maybe obviously beyond the top 5, but it seems like a lot of years there's a little bit more certainty as to maybe who the top 3 or 4 players will be. To me, there seems to be more uncertainty this year than most years, which could provide a great opportunity for us. But no, to answer your question, I don't think that's proper.
We've talked about you guys maybe moving back with the unpredictability. If there's a guy you have targeted in your spot, would you go up to get him? Is that a possibility?
I just think it'd be hard,
Yeah.
realistically.
But maybe would it be a little bit less difficult considering how evenly everybody is bunched?
Yeah.
Because they can still move back and get their guy?
Yeah, potentially. You're not sure how it'll play out. It could play out either way, and I've tried to think it through from both angles, and I could see arguments where it's either going to be harder or easier to move up or back. But realistically, the likelihood of us moving up, I would think, would be much slimmer. Would be slim. It could happen, but I think we're going to be happy picking at 5, and I think going back to Charlie's question, I think you got to weigh what type of price would you want to move back from 5. Is there even a price, and if so, what price? I think that might be more relevant than what it would take to get to 1.
Chuck, would you actively look to acquire a second-round pick? I know you guys don't have one this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think the priority is making sure we do well with our first pick, and if we can still get a great first-round pick and find a way to get a second-round pick or to get another player, to get another prospect or something, sure. But I think that's secondary to actually looking at the top end of the draft.
One thing that's been mentioned by a few people, Cam Atkinson mentioned it, obviously John Torrell mentioned it, you mentioned it as well, this idea of the team becoming harder to play against. I know you're not going to talk about specific players, but especially with a top 5 pick, this is somebody who could be on the team relatively quickly. Is that a priority, looking for someone who fits that mold?
I still think you got to make sure you get high-end talent. But high-end talent, as we just saw in the playoffs, you look at Tampa, you look at Colorado, they have a lot of high-end talent that is packaged in, oftentimes in a big or competitive or speedy frame. And so I think we're certainly, like everybody, want to get the most competitive players we can get, but you can't forsake talent. You have to make sure you're getting talent, and where we're picking, we should be able to find competitive people that have talent.
Chuck, switching gears, are you looking to add a veteran goalie, or do you think Fedotov and Sandstrom will battle for the number 2 spot, or will you bring in a veteran goalie?
That's still up in the air, and not. That's in all honesty. Obviously, we're going to look and explore what veteran goalies may be available, and talking to teams about potential trades and trying to see what the price would be to do that. And saying that, Sandstrom and Fedotov are 25 years old, and they both have proven they're good goalies in leagues outside of the NHL. So do you take a leap of faith and save some cap space, or do you get a veteran guy and maybe have more certainty? But then there's a cost to that as well. So that's really part of what we're discussing the last few weeks. Just continue to get better. He had some injury issues for a while, but the last couple of years he's steadily improved. I think he has over, I'm not even sure, between ECHL and the American League, maybe over 80 games of experience now over here, plus time in the Swedish League, and he has some games at the NHL level. But he's a highly competitive kid that's continued to progress. So certainly looks like he has the ability to play in the NHL. Again, whether it's right away or 3 months down the road or a year down the road, time will tell. But for us, it was he was a key guy. He was going to be an unrestricted free agent, so we Barry did a good job. Barry Hanran did a good job working with his agent and finding, I thought, a fair solution, giving him a little protection in terms of the one-way deal in year 2, but also allowing us to, maybe have a competition this year as well.
Going back to Ryan Ellis for a second, when we talked to him, he described his injury as multi-layered, really kind of very nebulous. Can you give us any clarity on what he's dealing with, what he's rehabbing from?
It's multi-layered. It's almost everything in the middle of the body. There's multiple areas that he's working to strengthen and rehab and trying to put all the pieces back together, so to speak. And again, he's made progress. He is, determined to get back and not just play, but be a good hockey player, be the player that we wanted him to be when we acquired him. He was probably the most excited player last training camp coming in after he got over the initial shock of coming from Nashville, and so excited to play. And it was incredible watching him. He spent just hour after hour with Ivan Provorov. They had breakfast together. They talked together before practice. They were obviously partners on the ice. They had lunch together. He wanted to get to know Ivan so well that they would build this chemistry as quickly as they could on and off the ice. And I was like, this guy's a true professional. It was incredible watching him interact with Ivan and Ivan interact with him and how, they were trying to make each other better. And then his world came crashing down. So it's been extremely difficult for him on many levels, obviously physically, but also emotionally, trying to become a part of the team when you play 4 games and you're basically rehabbing all year. You're not with the guys. You're not on the road. So he's very excited and bound and determined to get back. He's made progress, and I'm not trying to be vague. I just don't think anybody could look anybody in the eye and say he'll be back by this time frame. Like he's where we thought he would be. He's where the medical people thought he would be. But then he's got another step he's got to take. Hopefully that responds, and then another step, and then get on the ice, and how does that respond? And so it may go quicker, it may go slower. For me, the ultimate goal is to make sure we get him back as quickly as possible, and hopefully the goal has been for camp and for the start of the season. Hopefully that's the case, but the bigger picture here is making sure we get him back, and that's what we're focused on.
With Ellis's uncertainty, how hamstrung does that make you, though? Because you really won't know. It made it sound like you won't know until camp, maybe, if he's ready. So how hamstrung are you, and you don't know whether you have to go out and get another veteran defenseman in the summer, or
We'll know before camp. I mean, we may not know on July 13th, but I would think over the next month we would start to get a pretty good picture as he continues to advance in his rehab protocols, both off the ice and on the ice. And is he still going forward? Are there any step backs? Does he stall at a certain step? I mean, this is all the uncertainty. It's not trying to be vague or hide anything, trying to be as completely transparent as I can be. But there's certainly a path where it could go really well. But we'll just have to see. And, sure, there's some uncertainty and a little bit now with Joel. And the good news is Sean Couturier is doing great. He's doing all his summer training. Feels very good, same with Kevin Hayes. But, hopefully there's no more surprises this summer in a negative sense. Like I got a week and a half ago when I got a call that Joel Farabee, had numbness and pain in his neck and could be pretty bad. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So hopefully there's no more of those. But if there are, we'll just react. I mean, that's what we do, and we'll have to work around it. And we'll have the ability to hopefully improve our roster. But, clearly getting guys back to full health and some young players improving has to be a big part of this too. We can't just continually go to market and build a team. We need to get some guys back and get some kids to step up.
Chuck, have there been any decisions made on the rest of the coaching staff, particularly current coaches, assistants that might be returning?
Well, right now I can tell you that, I meant to speak to John before I did this to make sure I could say this, but Darryl Williams will be back. Kim Dillabo will be back, which Kim is goaltender coach for me. It's always an organizational decision, not just a coach. Adam Patterson and Vinny Eula will be back. And after that, we're working through, just from what I know right now, Torts is in the process, has spoken to or will speak to everybody that was on staff last year and tried to see if there's a fit, if it can work for the people that were here last year, if it can work for John. I mean, it's got to be a two-way street. There's got to be a comfort level. And we'll continue to talk to people outside the organization as well. So we're in the middle of that process, and whether it's done this week, next week, the following week, I'm not sure, but that's what we're working on now.
Kind of
To
to
try to
follow.
improve this team this summer, when your head coach says we have to get harder, do you hear that? Do you agree with that? Do you dispute that? Do you take that into account when you're trying to improve the team? I'd love to hear your reaction when he says something like that.
I 100% agree. That's why we hired him. And you have to remember, 1920 season, we were a hard team to play against. We played hard, and playing hard isn't just being big and strong and physical. It's playing the game the right way. It's having the puck. It's forcing the other team to defend. It's forcing the other team to play the way you want them to play and on your terms. And so it's not just about personnel. It's about not defending all the time. It's defensive structure. It's how you retrieve pucks and get out of your own zone. Again, it's hopefully having the puck and not being trapped in D zone like we were for a lot of last season. When you're defending all the time, it's hard to dictate. It's hard to be aggressive because all you're doing is reacting to what the other team does. So we want to have the puck, but to have the puck, you got to defend quickly, you got to defend well, and you got to get the hell out of D zone. And once you do that, then now you can manage the game. You can make puck decisions. You can chip and chase. You can enter under control. You can do whatever you can do because you have the puck, and you can dictate the flow of the game. So that's what we want to get back to. That's what we want to be. That's what Torts' teams have always been. And that's the mindset and the identity of what we want to accomplish here. So it's coaching, it's buy-in, it's accountability, it's structure, it's fitness levels, it's personnel, it's everything. It's everything. And we're going to try to check every box that we can this summer to be that type of team.
Tortorella had mentioned that despite how close the team seemed, he also did say he still sees splintering. I guess, why do you think he got that impression? Why do you think he's the guy that can help bring it back together?
Yeah, splintering, I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, obviously he's entitled to his opinion. I think it's a bunch of good guys that got along, but I think where we have to get to is you can be a good guy and we can all get along, but we have to hold each other accountable. And I think that's maybe what he's getting at and where clearly we need to get to, and the players would recognize that as well. It's about having standards and both off the ice and on the ice, and it's everything. It's how you play, it's puck management, it's shift length, it's team orientation, it's not turning a puck over for the third time in a row, it's blocking a shot, it's making sure you're in the gym and that you're on time, and it's everything to do with it. It's respecting your teammate and the organization by doing the right thing, and I think that's something we need to be better at and get back to. But it's a good group of guys that like each other and they want to get better. This group does not lack character, but we clearly need direction, accountability, and not just from the coaching staff. A part of that has to be internal too, and I think that's probably what he meant is creating that internal push, where it doesn't always have to be the coaching staff.
You know, the draft.
Going back to the existing coaches, especially with Darryl and Tim, what gave you and John the confidence that they would be a good fit for the team?
They're good at what they do. They're good at what they do. They're good people. They're good coaches, and I think as we fill out our staff now, I mean, clearly, John is looking for sort of, I would say, the two top assistants, and however they're labeled. Typically, one runs the defense and the PK, and one will run the forwards and the power play. Called a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator, whatever type of labels you want, and those are probably the roles we're filling right now. The people that'll come in and have some of those hands-on specific roles that John will entrust in them. So, we'll work on that, and certainly Daryl and Kim will bring a lot to the staff. Again, Kim's role is not just an everyday with the NHL team type of role. He also works with Brady Robinson. He manages our overall goaltender development program. He's involved in watching goaltenders for the draft. He is a coach that is heavily involved in the draft. We won't draft a goaltender that Kim and Brady don't sign off on. I mean, they know a lot more about goaltending than any of us in our staff will ever know. Sorry, Rick Bracey may not like me saying that. Rick knows a little bit about goaltending, but you have to really rely on your goaltending coaches for the drafting and the development of goaltenders, their progression through the system, as well as the day-to-day maintenance of your NHL goaltender. So Kim's role, to me, is a role that management, I should say me certainly, but management, Brent, Barry, Danny, Tommy, all of us have to have a strong comfort level in, because we rely on that role for more than just getting Carter, Hart, and whoever our other goaltender is ready for practice, or who's going to play the next game. There's he's been involved with Felix and now Samuel, and when Kolosov comes over. So it's a massive role, and so that's what gives me confidence on Kim. I've watched what he's done, and I think I mentioned at the end of the year, I think we're getting to a point where our goaltending depth is in a really good place with some young guys pushing, and Kolosov, who may be as talented as anybody we've ever drafted, in the pipeline. So it's exciting, and Kim and Brady are a huge part of that. Sorry about the tangent.
Where are you in negotiations with Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett to get them new deals ahead of July 13th? And I know we talked about goalies earlier, but Martin Jones, is he an option to come back?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's on the table. In terms of some of those young players with contracts, we're literally just starting. We've been involved in a lot of different interview processes, I guess you should say, and now dealing with assistant coaches and the draft, getting our free agent list together. So not that those issues aren't crucial, but as restricted free agents, we just have time. So we actually had a meeting yesterday on that, getting together and getting our comps together and getting our plan together. And so probably over the next week or so, we'll make contact with them, and hopefully some of them go quickly, but I'm sure over the next few weeks we'll get those done.
You mentioned free agency. Do you see yourself making a big splash in free agency, or do you think cap restraints will hold you back in that?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We're in unlike several teams, we don't have the cap issue. We don't have the cap issues that several teams do, where we literally have to move bodies out to become cap compliant. We can be cap compliant easily. We are cap compliant. If we want to be really aggressive in free agency, then we have to get creative. So it's just how aggressive we want to be, and how aggressive can we be. That may dictate how many transactions we have to make, but we don't. At least this is the best we've been for a few years, at least in terms of we're cap compliant. If we go away from the summer, we got a hockey team. We're good to go. So it's just how aggressive do we want to be.